real bad. We still getting through that snowstorm. That weather was terrible this weekend, but fortunately for me, I didn't have to go out in it, so it was cool. But I haven't seen no snow like that in a while. I can't remember whether we had snow like that last year or not, but we got some snow this year, so hopefully the weather be warm enough this week and it'll all melt and we won't be out there driving around in that mess for too much longer. So how's my audience doing out there? Today I got a few topics that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk to EA about his. If you don't know, he has a program on Tubi called Philly Uncut, and I wanted to talk to him a little bit about that today, how he got started. What put him in the mindset to do that. But also today, I wanted to talk about. I was reading up on something in the Washington Post this week today, as a matter of fact, this morning, and it was talking about the rental rates and how rent has gone up so much in the last year and a half since this pandemic. And I'm reading, and it was saying how in New York, Miami, and I think it was Austin, Texas, that the rent had went up 40% in a year. And this is for people who were already living in their apartments. Excuse me. A lot of their rent has gone up. And can you imagine you living in a property and your rent goes up almost double? And then for a lot of us, we weren't working during the pandemic. A lot of us were home during the pandemic, and a lot of us were out of work. So imagine now everything's getting back together, everything's moving, jobs are hiring, people are going back to work, and your rent is going up almost double. I was reading about a couple. They were pre-med students. I think they were I can't remember if they were in Virginia or not. I think they were in Virginia. And they said their rent went from $1,800 a month to $3,600 a month in like a month. And it made me think, where is the sensitivity on the account of the landlords? Now, I know that, a lot of people weren't paying their rent during the pandemic, and a lot of things, a lot of people weren't working, so a lot of landlords weren't getting paid. But for the landlords who were actually getting paid through the pandemic, for them to send their rent up so much, what about the people? You know what I mean? Because $3,600 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment is ridiculous. I don't care where it's at. That is ridiculous to me, especially if you just come in and tell a person, this month your rent was $1,800, 2 months your rent gonna be $3,600 a month. You know what I mean? That is a lot of money, because I understand the way they base rent in a lot of neighborhoods is your 1 week of your pay is what your monthly rent should be, and most people do not make $3,600 a week. So it's like all your living expenses, all your money that you're making is going to housing. Forget about all the other stuff, because you still have your utilities to pay. You still got to pay rent. You still got to pay your gas, electric. Some people have water bills to pay. And some people even had to pay for trash, for their trash to be removed. So, I feel like people are taking advantage of the situation, with this pandemic. And to raise people's rent to $3,600 a month, and even one young lady she was in Las Vegas. Her rent was $1,500 a month. She said she was barely making that. She was barely able to pay the $1,500 a month. She had 2 children. She was a single mother. And her rent was going up from $1,500 a month to, I think hers was going up to like $2,500. But that's within a month. And I don't understand how, it should really be a law against that. I know people are property owners, and I know a lot of people out there like, well, this is my property and I'll charge whatever I want to charge. But think about your tenants. Think about your tenants when you decide that you're going to go from $1,500 a month to $2,500 a month. Because imagine, where are they going to get the money from? You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole thing. You can charge someone $2,500 a month, but where are they going to get the money from? And this puts a person that has small children in a position where they're going to be homeless, possibly. And the homeless rate in our country is ridiculous. It's out of control as it is. So for people to have an apartment, then be told that they're going to have to pay double for rent, that what they were paying before, I think is so unfair. I can understand we want to go up $100. That's not too much. But when you say to a person that's paying $1,500 a month, next month your rent going to be $2,500 a month, just think about the hardships that it puts a person with children in. Or even a person that doesn't have children, even they're single and they're by themselves and they're paying this a month, they're paying that amount. And it's like, why? Why? Because a lot of the people weren't, hey Sharon, a lot of people weren't even eligible for a lot of the money that was given out for the renters for pandemic. And from my understanding, what I read up on in Pennsylvania, they had so much money for people who weren't paying, who are out of work during the pandemic. And if they didn't use the money, they were going to give that money to the Department of Corrections, which I thought was ridiculous. Because how can you take money that you were using for housing for people and give it to the Department of Corrections? Just think about that. You take the money and you give it to the prison system instead of giving it to homeless shelters. Because people are still homeless. People were homeless before the pandemic. People were homeless through the pandemic. And people are still homeless after the pandemic. Even though we're still in the midst of the pandemic. Technically, we're still in the midst of the pandemic. Although people are going back to work. But you take all of that money, what was left over, and it was millions of dollars left over, and you give it to the prison system. And guards are quitting their jobs left and right. So what are they doing with this money? That money should have went towards housing programs. And so I was reading that Joe Biden had a program, and it was supposed to be given to some kind of $100,000 worth of affordable houses. $100,000 is nothing. I mean, it's a lot, but just imagine we have billions of people, millions of people in this country, and thousands of people are homeless. So $100,000 is really like a drop in the sand. You know what I mean? If you think about it, it's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of houses at all for the amount of homeless people that we have in this country. And then they have so many different, criteria that you have to meet in order to even get special housing assistance, So it makes no sense to me that that in the country that we live in, we should never have housing crisis. Housing crisis should be the least of what we have in America because we spend so much money on other things like, the military. Not to say that they don't need to be compensated and they don't need to make sure that they're at the top of their game, but they spend a lot of money on war here in America, and we give a lot of money for other countries that go to war here in America. There's something going on with Ukraine and Russia right now. Everybody's talking about that, the UN. So we spend a lot of money on things that should be used, in my opinion. That's my opinion. We could take some of that money and use it towards housing, because when people are losing their homes, and I mean, these two people in Virginia, they were pre-med students. Hey, Mont, they were pre-med, and they're losing their homes while they're trying to go to college to become doctors. Now they said they were just going to live around in their car, so they were just going to kind of live like nomads, and it makes no sense. We shouldn't. I mean, there should be no reason in America that people have to live like a nomad, especially pre-med students, because they're already paying for college. And now they have to worry about being evicted from where they live because their rent is going to be doubled. So, that was a topic that really it touched home for me, because I've been in that situation. So it's like we have so much money for BS. And we can't help people that's homeless, people that's living. It's cold outside. We're going to have people living in the street, because it's been cold all over the country. It was even cold down in Florida this past weekend. So people should not be homeless in America. I don't care what nobody say, especially if you don't want to be homeless. There are homeless people out there that prefer to be outside, but most people don't. And I feel like if you go to work every day and you pay into taxes into this system, there is no way in the world you shouldn't be able to have the necessities for yourself when you work every day. And that's in my opinion, because HUD, in Philly alone, we have 20,000 or more vacant houses, maybe more than that. And they're just sitting there. They've been empty. Some of them been empty for years. Some of them falling apart, dilapidated. The backs are falling off the houses. The roofs are caved in. And the city does not, go after these landlords, go after the people who own these properties. These properties been empty for years. They're just sitting there. Just sitting there. And to me, I think it's all a part of the gentrification, because as soon as those people go in to buy those properties, they get them just like that. But there's properties that have been sitting around for years and they're empty. And we have homeless people in shelters in this city with children. And I feel like the city should take over those properties, and those properties should be for the homeless and people that are waiting to get out of shelters and things like that. It makes no sense to me. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's a shame, because we have people who work every day that go home to shelters. They go home, they take their children from school, they go to a shelter, and we have all these abandoned houses in this city. And people shack up in them. People, what do they call them? Squatters. People move in them. You know what I'm saying? It just makes no sense to me. I don't understand why, homelessness is such a big deal in America, because it really shouldn't be. It's just sad, and it makes no sense. And now, like I said, landlords all over the country are raising the rents. Like, how can a rent go up 40%? 40% in 1 year. Where are the people going to get money to pay, their rent from? Because minimum wage is still $7.25, if I'm not mistaken. Minimum wage is $7.25. So if you're working at a job where you're getting paid minimum wage, you can't even afford to live in a house that's $1,000 a month. Maybe not even $800 a month. And, what is our government doing about raising the minimum wage? Because the minimum wage right now, when the minimum wage started, and I think this was in, I should have had my notes. If I'm not mistaken, I think it started in like the 1940s. And if minimum wage would have went up with inflation, the minimum wage would be $26 an hour right now. So we're living in a time where our politicians and the government, inflation goes up and down, up and down. The cost of home ownership has dropped for the first-time home buyers, the lowest in 8 years. People are not buying homes. Investors are buying homes. But single families, the people who are trying to buy single family homes, they're not buying homes. And it's ridiculous, because if that's, that's what they say, that's the American dream, is home ownership. That's the first sign of wealth in America, is to own a home. And then we have investors come into our city. They buy these properties from the poor people, or people who left their properties for $10,000, $15,000, and then they go fix them up, and then they charge $500,000 to live in them. But we have homelessness in this city, and I don't understand it. I really don't understand that, the concept of it at all. And we vote these people in because I always talk about we should vote, and I didn't always have that stance. But who are we voting for when we are voting politicians into office? Are we not talking about homelessness? We're not talking about housing for people that live in the city. You know what I mean? Forget the investors that are coming in and buying everything and charging people $500,000 to live in them, because we all know that none of us, or barely any of us, are going to live in any of those properties. Not to say all of us, but many of us, most of us, can't afford. Even the people who are living in those properties are rooming up. They're not living in those properties alone. They're rooming up. They're having roommates. They're going in and sharing the expenses of buying the homes, many of them. So I don't understand why, like I said, all of this money floating around in the government for so many things, and we have homelessness in America, and we have landlords raising rents to astronomical rates. It's just ridiculous to me. We shouldn't be worried about housing in America. I mean, not at all. It's just ridiculous. We shouldn't be worried about housing. It's just sad. So to hear that landlords can actually double tenants' rents and then send them a letter and say, next month your rent is $2,500. After this month it was $1,500. It's just sad, I mean, what do you guys think about that? Hey guys, I see you guys on my timeline. What do you guys think about the cost of the rent in America? Because it's a shame. because you shouldn't go to work every single day and wonder if you're going to have a house to live in. You shouldn't. I mean, that should be the least of your worries. If you work every day, paying your rent should be the least of your worries. And this country is just, the way policies are here in America, it sucks. Actually, the policies in America, they just suck. That's just it. That's just the bottom line. There's no other way to say it. We shouldn't have homeless people in America that go to work every day, and people who take care of their children. No one should be homeless, and no one should have to worry about their landlord raising their rent $1,000 in a month. Hey, aunt, so that was something that really, it bothered me when I read that. It bothered me because, like I said, it's not just poor. It's not just people that are below the poverty line who are suffering from these things. It's people who make a lot of money. They don't want to pay $3,600 a month 2-bedroom apartment. You shouldn't have to pay $3,600 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. It's just it's just ridiculous because we pay people in sports millions of dollars a year. Not one person in sports. The teams making millions of dollars. So we have money here in this country somewhere. Somebody's getting money from somewhere. And I'm not saying those people who are in sports, I know they deserve to get paid a lot of money, but just think about the people who are homeless. We got all of this money floating around to do frivolous things with, but we can't keep our people from being homeless in America, and that is a problem. It's been a problem for a long time. It hasn't just started being a problem. Yeah. Exactly. People are moving down south. Exactly. A lot of people are moving down south. You know what I mean? But like I said, if you were listening in the beginning, there's a couple, they were down south. They were in Virginia. And that's not far south, but it's still south. And their rent went from $1,800 to $3,600 a month. So that's worse here. But all over the country. And so just think, if people leave here and go move down there, that's going to cause a housing situation in those areas next. It's like a perpetual problem. It's perpetual because those people that they're moving to the next, they're moving on down south, but it's still ridiculous. Hey, it's ridiculous, and like I said, we shouldn't have to worry about having a place to live in America. It's so much money floating around here for so many things. Healthcare and housing should be top priority in this country. And people should not have to worry about healthcare, and people should not have to worry about being homeless. You know what I mean? Especially when you work. It's just ridiculous. So, what do we do when it comes to our politicians? These are questions that we need to be talking to our politicians about, especially in Philly, because we have all of these, like I said, we have all these abandoned buildings here and all these abandoned houses, not just houses, we have abandoned multi-housing complexes. We have whole complexes with like 20 to 50 apartments in them sitting empty in places in this city. And why? It's unbelievable. That's jobs for people. That's jobs. People that come and fix them up is jobs. It's housing. So why are we stuck in this situation after all of these years? We still have all this homelessness, and now the rent rates is going ridiculous through the roof. What you think about that, E?
Well, let me say, I was hating on you. It's the reason why. Is it like, how can we ever establish anything far as a corporation or like a building? All right, if we don't establish it and then merch it to you and charge you to live in it. So no, I'm gonna tell you, I went to Mexico about 15 years ago, 12 years ago, to an area that was like some of the quote unquote original Indians, descendants of natives of, I forgot what tribe it was, and I don't want to make up a tribe, but it is some tribes that live there that don't utilize the electricity, the system. They don't utilize the system.
Right. all.
Y'all nasty. Yeah, y'all is literally nasty. That's the first thing I thought about. Hold up. I get it. You know, our ancestors had to do what they had to do. Now we got tubs and showers, good cloths and wash rags and all that. No.
But those people don't in Mexico. When I went to Mexico, the guy who was the guy who was driving the bus when we went off the resort to go, I forget we went to go to ride the dirt bikes or something.
He from the hood. Trust me, you gotta watch him.
He said he made $40 a week.
Yeah.
No.
You get when I say how much you make in jail.
No. He's not in
the
jail
county,
yet.
upstate.
He's not in jail. He's driving a bus and driving tourists and people who come.
Well, that's why I love America, land and I love. Stand beside
but just
her.
think about this. Mm-hmm. Just put it in comparison, right? Mm-hmm. People that make minimum wage in America, right? They only make $7.25 an hour.
Right.
Okay, it's equivalent to a person paying $40, almost making $40 a month. When you think about housing, when you think about how much it costs to rent a house in this city, just think about it. Because I'm not talking about people
in Jersey. I mean, New York.
Exactly. Listen, New York, the rent rates rose 40% in 1 year.
So did Delaware County.
It's ridiculous. Because what about the people who work every day? This is my thing. If you work every single day, your landlord shouldn't come in and say, "Oh, your rent was $1,500 this month," or "Well, next month is $3,600."
Well, that's why they have things in place called
what?
A lease. A lease.
No.
No, give me
you
real.
know, it's a free.
Wait a minute.
People are working and going home to shelters. When I was in San Francisco a couple years ago, they had a tent city in a park, and there was a nurse living there. A nurse. She worked at a hospital.
Well, I'm quite sure she made good money living in the tent.
No.
Sam Cooke lived in a tent.
She ain't want to live in a tent.
Sam Cooke lived in a tent for years.
San Francisco has the highest rental rates of anywhere in this whole country.
Wow.
The highest. If you're a nurse and you make a lot of money and you got to live, because she was living in a tent city, not because she wanted to, because she couldn't afford to rent an apartment.
So, but you started off talking about you don't think it's fair.
I don't think it's fair that the
why
rent.
Not? I mean, the cost of it. All right, well, let's go back to gas being 99 cents a gallon.
No, $3.99 a gallon.
Valentine chips for a quarter.
It was, but that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Newport's was $4.95.
Exactly. My thing is, so if all those things can be affected by inflation, your minimum wage in this country should be affected by inflation as well.
That's something different.
No, because this is what I'm talking about.
Because the banks, well, you know, those folks own the banks. They don't really want to give you their bread. First of all, banks are in business to make money off of you.
Well, then we shouldn't put our money
in. You are a customer.
Because we need to boycott stuff.
No, because banks are more trustworthy than Abdul, John, Sally, Joanne, and Rebecca.
They're not more trustworthy than under your mattress.
Yeah, no, all right. Now, if you got it under your mattress, that's why home invasions went from being burglaries